Hi everyone, we are Group 2 and today we're going to be discussing the principles of communication. Now before heading to our main topic, let's first identify what is communication and why is it important. Communication is a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a verbal or non-verbal actions. So what I'm doing right now is a good example. I am sharing this information about our presentation like using my voice. And I can still use gestures and signs, and that is still called communication. So, communication helps us understand each other on a deeper level. It helps us share our ideas, our thoughts, our solving skills. And because of that, we can foster an understanding community where peace and success surrounds us. So, communication, when we're communicating, there are principles that we need to be aware of. Those principles are called the core principles of communication. Now, let's head on with our first principle. So, for our first principle is communication is a process. Now, how is it a process? So, in communicating, there are always a sender and a receiver. Based on our PowerPoint, it states that it is an activity that moves forward from a beginning to an end. Now, what does that mean? In communication, there will always be a sender and a receiver. So in the beginning, there will be a sender sending its message, and in the end, will the receiver receive that message and understand it, and they will achieve a mutual understanding. So the question is, if you understand my report in this video, that means we achieve a mutual understanding. Now that is a process. That's why communication is a process. So let's head on to our next principle.
Now, communication is a system involving a group of interrelated parts or elements that affect one another. Below is the image of how communication is a system flows from start to the beginning. First is information source. This is where the message originates. Anything from an image to a voice or a video. Second is transmitter. The transmitter prepares the information for the transmission over the communication channel. Third, this refers to the physical medium where the signal travels, also known as the channel. This is the main source of noise. Fourth is the receiver. Its role is to extract the original information from the received signal. Lastly is destination. This is the final recipient of the information, which can be an individual, a gadget, or another entity. The primary objective of any communication system is to reliably transfer information from the source towards the destination. Now, let us move on to our next principle.
I will explain why communication is dynamic. So based on the given definition, it is not a single or isolated event, but a progressive, changing, propulsive, and evolving process and system. Meaning to say that communication is constantly changes depending on the situation, the people involved, and the purpose of the message. As we interact, we naturally adjust our words, tone, and approach to ensure understanding. For example is, in TV news reporting, news anchor deliver prepared script, but during live coverage, they may adjust their tone or wording depending on the situation. If they are reporting on serious event, they speak formally and seriously. But if they are covering a lighter topic like entertainment or sports, they use more relaxed and engaging tone. This adaptation helps the audience connect better with the message. In short, communication is a continuous and evolving process. It changes based on the situation, the people involved, and the purpose of the message. Understanding this helps us to communicate more effectively in different range of contexts. So now let's proceed to the next core principles of communication.
Communication is either intentional or unintentional. Communication is intentional when a message is directed to a particular audience for a purpose. Within an occasion, it is unintentional when the message is not directed to the person who receives the message. So to summarize, intentional communication occurs when someone attempts a conscious attempt to convey a message to the other person. An example of this is when you directly ask a question to the other person. And unintentional or accidental communication occurs when messages are conveyed without the intent of the person. These are usually done with facial expressions and body language. Now let's move on to the next topic.
Last core principles is communication is both interactional and transactional. The interactional communication describes communication as a process of alternating roles between sender and receiver, with feedback as a key element. For example, a conversation where one person speaks and then the other responds, creating a back and forth exchange. While transactional communication describes communication as a process where communicators are simultaneously senders and receivers, creating shared meaning through interaction. For example, a conversation where both people are listening and responding to each other's verbal and non-verbal cues at the same time. Now, we're moving to the next topic, the additional principles.
I apologize for the inconvenience. Moving on, effective communication is essential in our everyday interactions. But why is that, you may ask? Well, effective communication is important or crucial because it ensures that the information given is shared accurately and clearly. It helps prevent misunderstandings, saves time, supports productivity, and even strengthens relationship. Now, onto some few additional points would improve communication, and this will ensure that messages are understood correctly and efficiently. First that we have is clarity. Clarity. The message should be clear and easily understood, avoiding ambiguity and using simple, straightforward language ensures that the message is interpreted correctly. It means that making sure that a message is easy to understand, using simple words or clear sentences that would help to avoid confusion to the receiver or to the one you're talking to. Writing a message is when a message is clear, the receiver understands it without having any more further explanation. On to the second one is conciseness. Communication should be brief and to the point, without unnecessary information that might distract or confuse the receiver. It means that delivering a message in a few words or as possible while keeping the meaning or the context intact. Unnecessary details should be avoided so that the receiver can focus onto the main idea or onto the main point. A concise message saves time and also reduces misunderstandings. For the third one, we have coherence.
Coherence. So according to the learning materials, the message should be logical and well organized, with ideas flowing smoothly from one point to the next. In other words, coherence is achieved through the organized structure of ideas, clear connections between the concepts, and the use of transitional words and phrases. And by implementing this, you can help the audience through your argument or narrative, ensuring a clear and logical flow of ideas. And for our next principle is relevance. So, relevance. According to the learning material again, the content of the communication must be pertinent to the topic and the audience needs and interest. So, by the word pertinent, and the principle itself relevance, meaning that it is related or connected to the topic. This also involves the understanding of the audience, maintaining a contextual connection, avoiding irrelevant information, and adapting to feedback or changing circumstances, making it relevant to the topic. So, for our next principle now is feedback, and Jeff will report it for us.
Okay, so thank you for that. Feedback. Encouraging feedback ensures that the receiver has understood the message and can respond or ask for clarification if needed. So, in layman's term, feedback is the receiver's message to the sender. There are positive and negative feedbacks. And the positive feedback, this feedback is concisely done and is well delivered to the sender. Meanwhile, on the negative feedback, it shows that the receiver has not understood what the sender has said, because there are certain elements that destroy this communication process, such as when there are barriers in communication like noise, internet connectivity, and linguistic barriers. So that would you call it on the negative feedback. And moving on, we have the audience-centeredness. Audience-centeredness. Tailoring the communication to suit the needs, level of understanding, and expectations of the audience ensure effectiveness. So, let's put this in this perspective. For example, I am a magician, and in order to entertain and gain everyone's attention, I would never do puny little tricks, but instead I will do interesting tricks. That is also applicable in communication. I also need to deliver precise and audience-centered information that they can understand and they can decode on whatever language they commonly use, especially us, where we have diverse types of language and dialects. So that is all for our presentation, and thank you for all your listening.